All right. How's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing today? It's hump day, it's Wednesday. Another lunchtime meetup, a little bit after lunch. But we've been going strong this year. A lot of exciting things um, going on with the chamber. First of all, before we jump in first, I want to just thank our co-sponsor for this event, which is the SBA. Small Business Administration has been uh, an awesome partner with the Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce. With this partnership, we've been presenting Money Matters. It's a curriculum that's been facilitated by our guest, David Hincapie, and he's the Economic Development Specialist and the Veteran Business Development Officer with the Washington Metropolitan Area District Office for the SBA. And today also we have one of our very own members. She's been a member for a while, and she's also an Allstate. She owns her own Allstate insurance company, and her name is Vernice Harvey. So we have two great guests. One is one of our members, and she's been a member for a while. So great to hear from both of them today. But before we jump right in, and I'm going to hand everything over to David and Vernice. I just wanted to give you guys, because I know not everyone in here may not be a Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce member, and I think this is a good point to stop. Melissa, do you want to just launch that first poll? Is it showing that first poll? Are you a MBCC member? So we just want to get a chance to an idea of who in here is already a member. Let me go ahead and vote myself, and let's see what those results read. We only have 27 in here right now. Yep, you do. You should join. And this is a good time to join. Just to give you a little bit of background about the MBCC while this poll rolls in. We're built on three major principles. First is connection. So if you're interested to connect with the Black business owners, perfect organization to join. If you want to help educate Black businesses, or you need some education as a business, or not even a Black business owner, you may not be a Black business owner, but you just want to take part of education, that's another principle. And also advocate on behalf of the Black business owners in the state of Maryland. So those are our three major principles. We began in April of 2015. Our headquarters is in Rockville, Maryland. Today we have over 400 members, and we have representation as far north as Harford County, as far west as Washington County, and as far south as Marys County. And we have a satellite office campus in Hagerstown Community College. So just to give us some background, how are we on the poll results so far, Melissa? I only have 29. I'm sure more people will come in a little bit later. You want to share that with the audience? Let's see. Okay, so strong amount. We got a lot of members. This is a good time. This is not directly from our database. You may have came here by way of the SBA's database, but we're a great organization to join. That was a great time to join. We have a full calendar of events for the remainder of the year, including with the SBA and presented by David on business planning, business value propositioning, business modeling. Everyone here, we're going to add you to our database so that you receive information on any upcoming activities. And also, we want to thank some of our other sponsors that have provided some wonderful resources and that makes all of this happen. Is Montgomery County and FSC's First Level Up program. One more announcement. Another reason why you joined, we're going to be archiving all of our video presentations and launching on our new website that should be launching before the end of this month. And if you're a member, you'll have access to our archive of all of our video presentations. So if you missed this one, you'll be able to go back. We'll also have exclusive membership events. And if you still want to join, follow us on what's doing, look us up on LinkedIn, Maryland Black Chamber of Commerce. Our Facebook is at Maryland BCC, and our Twitter is MD Black Chamber. And with that, David, I don't know if you're ready to go. I'm gonna hand it over to you. And I'm going to sit back and take some of my own notes.
Okay. All right, I think I got my better camera working. Rearranging. Yeah, because it's showing me looking down. Okay, this is actually better. All right, so I don't know what I did. I fiddled with some buttons. I clicked here, I clicked there. I did the modern version of slamming my hand on the side of the TV.
Right.
And got this thing working a little bit better so I could get this on the other monitor. All right, man, this is great. Okay, so welcome everyone. We're here to talk about insurance. And this might be a new topic to some of you, or some of you may already know that you're going to need insurance and you just don't know where to get started. And we got an insurance professional here with us. I'm going to be going through this presentation. The presentation, you've been on any, say this before, please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself if you are not talking, because we can't have any feedback going through here getting in the way. Now, you've heard me say that this is a program that was designed to be done in person. Get in a room with 15 to 30 people and talk about it. So the PowerPoint presentation you're going to hear me using is heavy on text. It breaks all the rules about good presentations, but that's what we're stuck with for now. But we'll try to make this interesting for you, me and the other speaker, other presenter, so that you get something good out of it. All right, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to jump right into this presentation. Just a second to get this thing to work right. Do this way. Good to go now. Screen, and I'm going to share this screen. And I'm going to turn this into the slideshow from the current slide. All right, so our objectives here is we're going to identify the types of insurance required for a small business, other types of insurance a small business should consider, and explain why insurance is important for a small business. Now, I want you to think about this, as you go along. What do you already know, or what do you want to learn about insurance, right? Maybe ask yourself the question, put yourself in the position of a person who's out there shopping for this, okay? And keep that in mind as you go along. And Venice and I are going to do our best to help you along. Now, here's 6 key areas that you want to discuss in your insurance, or that you want to pay attention to in your insurance. Insurance your business may require, other types to consider, reasons for insurance. Why do you have this, right? Location-related considerations, right? Like if your business, if you have a brick and mortar, if you have an office, if you have some location like this, there may be something location specific. Flooding in some areas is not trivial. It's not a trivial risk. It's not insignificant. It may be an important thing. Now, selecting a policy, an agency, and an agent, and then what are you going to do after the purchase? Right. Now, you want to look at state and local requirements. There might be insurances that you're required to have. And since you don't know what you don't know, hopefully we can get you some knowledge here. Check with federal, state, county, and local governments, right? Any of the regulatory agencies or places where you go and you get your business license, you can ask them questions. One of my favorite ways for people to ask someone to tell me what I don't know is after I've had a conversation with them. Like if I'm having a conversation with Venice, right, who's going to be with us here, I have a conversation with her and I ask some questions, but I ask questions based on what I already know I don't know. So I'll ask Venice at the end, I'll say, okay, what did I forget to ask you about? What did I forget to ask you about? Because I don't know, I don't know. So when you're talking to somebody, federal, state, county, local governments, that's an easy way. It's an easy question to ask for someone to inform you on the thing that you don't know, Medical insurance with specific coverage may be required for employees. Automotive insurance coverage for vehicles used in connection with the business. Your regular consumer policy is not going to be enough. Venice, tell us about your experience with state and local requirements and what's one of the best ways, what do you think is the best way for people to stay on top of that?
Well, the local requirements, you do want to make sure as you're getting your business registered that you're aware of what the state requirements are from the real property business registration office in Baltimore. But one of the main insurance that is required and it's always told to you, it's the workers' compensation. So that's and the general liability. So you want to make sure as you're getting your license and you're registering your business that you're aware of what insurance requirements the state of Maryland has.
Are there any common mistakes you see people do with the automotive insurance?
Actually, that's a very common one. A lot of people tend to think it's okay to keep their commercial auto onto their personal auto. And that is okay until you have a claim situation. And if you have a claim situation while you're operating your commercial vehicle in a commercial capacity, but carrying personal auto insurance on that vehicle, then your insurance company will not or doesn't have to pay that claim. And that's when you'll find yourself in some real problems when a claim is denied.
Yeah, precisely at the moment when you most need insurance,
Hopefully, you won't
gonna
face
learn you don't have it.
liability. Right. I always say you don't need insurance until you need it.
Yeah,
And when you need it, it's too late.
yeah. Yeah, it's always good to do some planning ahead of time. I've never needed commercial insurance for anything like that. But in personal insurance purchases, I've been lucky in having a really my dad, I hated when I first got a license. My dad told me about insurance. I'm from California, and California was one of the first states to mandate insurance. Like you had to have it. And I'm old enough that I was around that time and getting my license, and I hated it, because I have to get some money, I have to have a part-time job and help pay for the insurance and the whole thing. And then I learned from him his fanaticism about this, about always being prepared, was one good thing, because I always paid a little bit more, so I was covered. And I've only needed my insurance 3 times in my entire life. All 3 times had to do with a car being twice. It was a car being stolen. One was recovered, one was a total loss, and the other one was a car was just somebody smashed into it overnight while it was parked on the street. And because I had been so obsessive of knowing of all the details, what's covered, what do I have to do, and everything like that, every single instance I've had to deal with car insurance was a dream. It was one of the easiest things I'd ever had to do. I called them up. I said, this was my problem. They said, okay, we got you covered. This is going on. That I had paid extra, so I would have a car rental that I could use. It was a little car. And it was like an easy experience. And I thought, this is worth it for doing all the work in the beginning to learn this, because when I needed it, I could not have continued my making a living if I had not had this easy insurance, if I had not had a rental car paid for, there was no, because like I said, I'm from Southern California. I live in DC now, but I had to drive to work, and there's no public transportation I could rely on. So without this, I would have been paying out of pocket. I would have been doing all this. So all this stuff, it matters. You got to pay attention before you need it. All right, let's carry on. Now, liability insurance, other liability insurance. There's professional liability insurance that might be required for certain professional licenses, right? Probably the one that's most commonly known or heard of is like for doctors. Doctors have liability insurance, but other businesses might need this. Then there's general liability insurance, and then business and insurance for directors and officers.
The one that
General liability insurance. Venice, tell us something about that.
With general liability insurance, it's so important in your business. I always say what I do as an insurance company agent is to help you to protect your assets and protect you from financial disaster down the road. And the general liability, and when you're a business owner, that's the most important policy that you can purchase for yourself. It protects you from all liability exposure that your business may come up on. You can purchase, there's two, the business owner's policy, general liability. Business owner's policy will have some additional coverages in there, like for your property, your furniture, other things in your office. The general liability, of course, is just going to cover you for liability and other things in the policy that we can get into later on in the presentation. But general liability insurance is very, very important for your business. You should not operate your business without general liability, and also paying attention to the liability coverage itself. It's $1 million versus 500,000. That is very important to pay attention to that.
There's a question in the chat. Someone asked, do I need workman's comp insurance if I don't have any employees?
Most times you don't. In some skills, or it depends on the type of business, the state might require that the business owner carries workers' comp on themselves. Or if you're getting a contract to go into someone else's property, they might still ask or require workers' comp from you. But for the most part, you do not need it, and if you don't have an employee.
Okay. All right. Move on here. So work-specific insurance. Now, this is the first discussion point. We would like to review a little bit of the kind of stuff you're going to encounter in certain different types of businesses, right? So we have restaurants, food business insurance, construction company, general contractors liability, and then an auto repair shop, business general liability. Now, what other types of professions, Venice, have you seen? What other types of or sectors of business, or here we have retail food, we have retail services in the form of an auto repair shop, and we have a general contractor. What other work specific ones do you think are most common?
Attorneys, doctor's offices, that probably was mentioned earlier.
Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Carry on.
And I'll add to that, if you are in business, then you really do need insurance. Anything that you're in that might expose you to causing damage or death to others, you do need insurance. And I can share personal experience with you if
Please do.
I had a situation where I just moved my office 2 years ago. I was upstairs and was there for 15 years. And just the day when I was moving my office, one of my staff came in that Sunday to help me with the move. And her son dropped something in the toilet. Well, the next morning I got a call early from the HOA, from the condo association. And the overflow from my toilet upstairs went all the way downstairs into the doctor's office, caused some major damage in the doctor's office because it went on all night long. And of course, I was liable.
Okay.
So that just happened just like that. I could have been sued for lost wages for the doctor, for all his staff. He couldn't, if he wasn't able to see his patients for a week or so. I don't know. I could be faced with a much bigger liability. Thankfully, he was my personal doctor and he was very kind and I was able to get the repairs done in a quick manner and save me from further liability exposure. I say that to say you just don't know what will cause you to face liability exposure in your business.
Yep. I mean, that's the thing about risk, and that's the thing about emergencies is it's hard to understand that you cannot predict the future. I don't know why people think they can. I don't know why people worry that something won't happen to them. You have to worry about it. Now, workers' compensation insurance, there is a lot of misunderstanding about exactly who pays for this, how it works. It protects against illnesses and injuries at work. Does these things here in the thing, pays for rehabilitation, retraining, addresses payments to beneficiaries and medical payout limits. It's required by most states. It's private or state administered. Venice, can you give us an overview of this? What does this mean about, well, who exactly pays for workers' compensation insurance? And what kind of rehabilitation and retraining does it does? And most importantly, the difference between private or state administered. Perhaps most importantly, I think that is an important thing to go over there. Can you tell? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back here. Can you go over that a little bit for us?
Okay, yeah, sure. So the employer pays for the workers' compensation.
Mhm.
Okay, always. As far as, and there's if your staff is injured on the work, on the job, then the workers' comp kicks in to pay for lost wages, any treatment that might be needed. Those are the two most important things that happens on there, and of course, the lost wages.
Mhm.
In the state of Maryland, you can purchase workers' comp on the open market through maybe Allstate, Hartford, other big companies, but also the state does offer workers' comp through Chesapeake Insurance, because there are some industries that, because they're considered high risk, the private sector will not underwrite those risks. And then you'll have to go to the state where you can obtain those coverages through a regular agent like myself, but we are purchasing it for you from the state.
So the state of Maryland is acting as the insurance company. Some
As the
agency
insurance
of the state
company.
of Maryland is acting as the insurance company, and the
You're
and the
underwriting
state
the
doesn't.
risk.
Yeah,
Yeah, they are underwriting the risk.
right. Okay.
Yeah. What I see most often in workers' comp is that people will, when they're purchasing the workers' comp, they will underestimate
Mhm.
what their payroll is. And that's what you're priced on, right? The payroll, which is not a good thing to do. It's not a smart thing to do because you will get audited.
So when you say they underestimate their payroll, what they're saying is their payroll is lower than it really is because they want to pay lower premiums.
Right, maybe mistake type is a better word. They'll mistake their payroll,
right.
thinking, but it catches up with you because you will be audited for workers' comp insurance.
Yeah. If you have, if are you going to get an audit after any claim, or will it be like too many claims in a 3 or 4 year period, and then they're going to get suspicious?
Actually, it's randomly most time. After a year or
Ah,
two, the company will send you an audit.
okay.
And then you'll have to go back and pay all those back
Premiums.
premiums.
All right. So you heard it here. Do not underestimate by mistake or otherwise your payroll, because if you get an audit, they're going to make you pay back premiums. And then all of a sudden your cash flow today is affected because you owe premiums from the last 2 years because you underestimated the payroll.
Very important.
All right. This is already worth getting on this call. That's already worth getting on this call. All right. Let's carry on. Now, unemployment insurance. benefits those who are unemployed through no fault of their own. They're willing and able to work, actively searching, federally regulated and state administered. Check with the state and federal Department of Labor. You always make payments, you avoid penalties and actions. Okay. Tell us a little bit about these penalties and actions mentioned here. What sort of thing what is that referring to?
Let me say I'm not an expert on
Okay.
unemployment insurance since it's run by the state and federal, but what I always suggest to folks is to make sure that you hire a payroll company. Because if you are not reporting your 941 properly, which would give the state this information, then you could find yourself into problems with the IRS and the state, which is not a good thing.
Okay. All right.
Because if you're not filing the proper reports to report what you're collecting from your employees, which is supposed to be paid to the state, in this case, the state of Maryland, then that could be a very big issue for you.
Right. Now, from an employee's point of view, that's the only way that I know anything about unemployment insurance benefits. What is colloquially referred to as, collecting unemployment, right? That's what you're collecting is unemployment insurance benefits when you're collecting unemployment.
Right.
I remember when I got out of the Army and I was strictly speaking homeless and unemployed. I come home and I got to get my life together, right? I'm like out of the Army. I come back to Southern California and I'm on my sister's couch for a little bit while I'm getting myself sorted out, getting an apartment, the whole thing. But I had some unemployment benefits. What people don't understand from the employee point of view is that is meant for employees who lose their job through no fault of their own. When you leave military service, your contract is up, right? So it's no fault of your own. If you're laid off, it's no fault of your own. Now, you don't get unemployment benefits. So you all business owners, from your point of view, you don't pay unemployment benefits. You don't have to, these benefits don't get paid out to somebody who's fired for a cause generally. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So if somebody's doing something wrong, somebody's stealing from you, fired for a cause, you're not going to pay out on the employee benefits there. It's for somebody who gets laid off because, there's a downturn in business or they have to be dismissed for some other reason or whatever. Then the benefits will be paid out, but this is an insurance policy for them that you are paying for. Do employees ever contribute to unemployment insurance policies?
No.
No. Okay.
Good.
All right.
Yeah.
So strictly it's paid for by the employer. Okay.
And the employer, just to go back to your point, the employer does get the opportunity to approve or deny the claim that the employee is making.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's some employers some people seem to think it's just like, oh, any jerk who like steals from me and I have to fire them, I have to pay unemployment benefits for them. No, it's not true. You get to challenge it, right? Okay. So let's carry on to the next thing here. Property insurance. There is commercial, like natural disaster and theft, equipment coverage in a commercial policy for repair and replacement of parts of your equipment, inventory, supplier, shipments, and in stock. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, most general liability does not cover equipment. You'll find that there are companies out there that will sell equipment policies for repair or replacement of maybe an AC unit. The most common thing that will be covered under a general liability policy for equipment is actually the AC unit as well. If it's stated in what I find now that most companies will cover the air conditioning unit, which you're normally required for, you're all normally responsible for when you're leasing a property. But if the landlord states in your lease that you are responsible for replacement or repair of the air conditioning unit, then that could be covered as an equipment under your general liability. Your computers and your office equipment, yes, it's covered under your general liability.
So regarding
As
that,
personal properties.
so this is something that might arise from the lease. You got to look at the lease and see if in the lease you're responsible for this, then you should be sure that your insurance covers you for this.
Correct.
Okay.
I know
So-
here at the state, we do cover you if your lease states that
Hmm.
you're responsible for the unit.
Okay, so there's an important point to remember here then, that your insurance coverage are going to change possibly depending on what's in your lease. It may not have even occurred to you before this to see, well, how does my lease relate, or obligations that I have in my lease, or terms or conditions or something in my lease, how does that affect what insurance I'm going to need? All right, well, you heard it here. There
Exactly.
might be something in there that's going to affect that, and so be aware of that, and perhaps have a copy of that when you're meeting with an agent, right? Have a
Right.
copy of that lease so they can look it over.
Mhm.
All right, and now what's insurance for inventory? What exactly does that cover and protect against?
Let's use the example of a store owner.
Mhm.
It's a lot nowadays, you find a lot of small store owners. Then when you purchase your general liability policy, you want to make sure that you have enough property coverage to cover your inventory, whether you're selling clothing or food or toys or whatever it may be. You want to make sure that your inventory is covered, and make sure you're reviewing your policy when you purchase it. Look at the policy to make sure that is included and is not stated as an excluded item.
So here we have other kinds of insurance to consider. There's loss of income, life, disability, and medical. We've probably all heard a little bit about that, and I'll ask you to talk about it a little bit. What's this loss of income insurance? That's a little known one.
Loss of income, it can be covered under your general liability. And a lot of time you can add that as a rider.
Mhm.
You find that it's getting more and more common due to civil or domestic terrorism or whatever might cause you not to be able to work. It has to be first be a covered loss that is stated in the policy. So if there's a covered loss and you can't work for a week because you can't access your building, then your
Okay.
income would be covered under your general liability or your business owners, whichever one you have.
So this is not for an employee. This is for a business owner who cannot
Owner.
access their building because of something that happened. And if they can't access the building, the business can't be open. So they've lost revenue, which means they've lost income. It covers against that?
Covers against that.
Okay, covers against that. All right. Loss of income. All right. Now, life now
Got
there was one thing that you said in there. There's a word you use, a rider, R-I-D-E-R, like a horse rider.
Right.
I suspect there are people in the audience who have heard that word in connection with insurance and are not sure what it means. Tell us what that means.
When you purchase an insurance policy, there's broad coverages, right? And name things that are covered. But for instance, let me think of a good example. A rider is anything that you can choose to have or reject. That's the best way to say it. So I could say I want to add data loss or data compromise. That's actually a very frequent one nowadays to add to you as a rider to your policy is the data breach or data compromise. Because if you're involved in a business that you're actually, I should say this, if you're involved in a business that you're collecting people's credit card, you are storing their personal information somewhere on your computer system, whether their social or whatever. You heard that Kmart was Walmart was compromised, or those big stores sometime. You as a small business owner can actually face that as well. So when you purchase your general liability or a business owner's policy, it might not be a bad idea to talk to your agent about add in that data breach coverage onto your policy. And that's something you could add as a rider, because you can choose to add it or you can refuse to add it. That's why
Okay.
it's called a rider.
And now this will cover you against losses to your business caused by a data breach. In other words, you lose money. But these data breaches, can such things be covered under liability insurance? Because if there's a data breach which causes someone else a loss, for example, there's a data breach, they got my credit card information, then I find out, someone stole my identity and it's going to cost me $5,000. And then I learn that it was your business where they got it, then maybe I hold you liable, or I get a lawyer and I try to sue you for this. So under your liability insurance, can you be covered for these data breaches?
Only if you have the data breach coverage on there,
Okay, so it's a rider that will be on the liability insurance.
on the liability insurance.
And is that generally a rider on the general liability insurance, or is there specific other?
On the general liability or the business owner's policy, both.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're throwing a lot out in the audience. There's a lot here. I hope the message you're getting so far from this is, I didn't know all this stuff. I better go learn. Because we're not going to teach it to you all here. We're not going to get you everything here. You're not going to learn everything you need to know. I hope you're taking notes, you're scribbling it, and you're going, oh, these are 5 things I need to go learn now. All right.
And let's talk about the life insurance a little bit.
Yeah.
Are you staying on the slide? Yes. Another important coverage for small business owners is what we call key man insurance, which is in the form of a life insurance. What is key man insurance? You do want to make sure that, for instance, Venice Mundell Harvey, I'm the owner of my Allstate insurance agency. I want to make sure that I have a life insurance in place that will give my family time to, God forbid, something should happen to me, give them time to be able to hire another agent, whatever they may need to do to keep the business going. A lot of time you find that especially if you're business partners, they'll buy one in each partner. Okay. So key man insurance is very important. It's what's going to keep your business going and allow your spouse or your children to be able to buy time to keep the business going. Because what's going to happen if the key person in that business is no longer around, income is going to drop and could drop significantly pretty quickly, right? So you need some money, which will only come from the form of a life insurance policy to do that. Another story is of a doctor who died a few years ago in Silver Spring from picking up on his private jet, picking up his son from college. And the practice actually went under because the other doctor had just left the practice. The wife couldn't scramble enough to get the business going. So it's very, very important that you're taking that into consideration as well.
All right. Medical insurance. Tell us about that with regard to or disability with regard for a business owner. Many of the people in the audience might already know about disability insurance and medical insurance for an employee, for me as an employee of wherever I happen to work. Well, what about for a business owner?
Business owners, disability insurance is very important. It's something that I have personally, because and the good thing about disability insurance is that you can have waiting period, right? But especially if you're new in business, disability insurance is going to cover you if, suppose you're a contractor and you do painting, you're a painting contractor, for instance. And you broke your arm in a car accident. Well, guess what? You can't paint.
Yep.
Where's that income going to come from? That would come from your disability insurance. And when I say there's a waiting period, you can say, okay, I want my disability insurance to kick in after 90 days. I
Right.
won't because I have enough income to take me for 90 days, or I wanted to kick in after 6 months because I have enough income to keep me going for 6 months.
Mm.
So that's what disability insurance can do for you as an employer, or a business owner rather, I should
And
say.
can any of it be used to cover payroll temporarily?
It's your personal income, so I guess that would be a question for your accountant, how you would treat that with your taxes and your accountant.
Okay.
Because that now, it's a business income, but it's very, I would save that question for an accountant, because now it comes to how are you filing that income with the IRS? Does that make
Right.
sense
It counts as personal income to you,
to you?
but then if you think it's going to be short term, or you think it's worth it for what you make the business decision, and you use this insurance, these dollars from this insurance policy benefit to keep payroll going for a pay period or two. Yeah, okay, that could get complicated as far as how
Okay,
you
but-
do it with taxes.
Taxes, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
see, yeah.
All right. Now, lender or investor required insurance. I don't think we're going to get too many people on this call who are going to be looking for this, but tell us a little bit about that.
Let's,
A lender maybe, but maybe not investors, but a lender
Right.
might require
a
some.
lender will most times, or maybe all the time, would require to make sure you have some form of general liability or business owners policy. So if you're, for instance, going to obtain a loan to purchase the office that you're doing business in, then you would need a business owner's policy that will cover the structure and also the property in there and the bill. If you're just getting the cash flow for your business, then you'd probably just require a general liability. Of course, they want to make sure that you have insurance, because again, if you were to become liable for something that could wipe your business out, okay? Someone slips and fall in your business, now they're suing you for $1 million. Your business is now wiped out. You can't continue to function. That's pretty much, or you could lose your business, I should say. Then who's going to pay that loan? So the bank has to protect themselves, and so they will and should ask for general liability insurance before advancing that money to you.
Right.
Protect the investment. Mhm.
All right. So, some things to think about here. Do you have a list of the names of the people who could run your business, or that you would trust to do so if you were ill for an extended period of time? This is regarding the key person policies here. Who would take over your business in the event of your death? I mean, what plan do you have for this? Is there a family member or a trustee who's been named to liquidate, somebody who has power of attorney to liquidate the assets, right? These are the kinds of things you have to consider for emergencies. And people often don't until it happens. I saw this happen a lot during the pandemic, where we were doing the SBA's direct loans, the economic injury disaster loans. And, in 2020, in April or May or June of that year, a business would apply for and get an economic injury disaster loan. And then all of a sudden, and then I would get a phone call or an email or something from someone in the district offices area, right? This area that we serve, saying, I am now responsible for this. The owner of the business has passed away. Not necessarily because of COVID. It was just somebody who this happened. And now what's going to happen? Now you have this person who's dealing with this, right? So you have to have a plan for this, for just in case. Because most of the times when I got those phone calls or those emails, it was somebody who was not part of a plan. They didn't even know they were the person who was going to deal with this. They didn't know. They found out when the deceased business owner's lawyer got in touch with them and said, Turns out I'm the person they chose to do this, to handle this situation. They didn't even know. So because insurance deals with unpredictable events, or at least unpredictable within a certain time horizon, this is one of those unpredictable events. And so you want to have a plan for that. Now, think about these. What about employee ownership? That's another option. Would selling the business to employees provide income to a spouse who's not involved in the business? So here's a little bit of statistics regarding business succession. Most small businesses do not get sold that are listed in a business brokerage, right? The way houses are listed for sale, businesses can be listed for sale. Most of them never find a buyer. And most of them also do not get passed on to a family member, children or nieces, nephews, a brother or sister. Most of that just doesn't happen. So most of them just shut down, and they may liquidate, which may not be a whole lot of money, right? Liquidating meaning they just sell whatever is not nailed to the floor, and if they don't own property, then there's really not that much money that the survivors of the business owner are going to get for this. So a way to not liquidate, but get a fair price for the business, is to sell it to the employees. You create a buyer in the form of the employees. That's a way to do it. We're not going to get into a big, long conversation about this here. I'm saying this is an option, and you should find out about it. If you want to ask me about it, you can email me. I can tell you all about that, and point you in the direction of people who can advise you on setting up a plan like that, if you choose one. And lastly here, do you have a life insurance policy that covers all the liabilities of this business? That's an important thing to do. It's an important thing to plan ahead for. All right, surety bonds. So I have surety bond trivia. You might, as an insurance person, you might find this a little bit interesting, Venice. One of the earliest examples of writing, going back to what is called Sumeria, the inventors of writing, the wedge-shaped cuneiform. One of the earliest examples of writing that we have, so this is 6,000 years old, is a surety contract between priests of a temple and some general contractor 6,000 years ago who was building something for the temple. It's an actual surety contract. So we're going to talk about surety contracts here. Writing was invented for business, as it turns out. Writing was invented to keep track of who owed who what for, this year's grain harvest or whatever. So a surety bond is something required. It's something like very often it's required of a general contractor. And if I'm the contracting party, let's say I'm the city government and I'm hiring a general contractor, I require that the contractor has a surety bond, meaning if something goes wrong in the execution of this contract, the building, the whatever, and I suffer a loss of some kind, I will be paid money from the surety bond contract. And it's the general contractor who I have contracted to do the construction, the work. They're the ones who pay for us. So it's a form of insurance for contractors generally. Now, it's required also for some licenses or permits, car dealers, construction contractors, it says here. It's protection for consumers and for government. And a bid bond may be required to submit a bid to the government if you are trying to sell your goods and services to any kind of government, any level of government, city, state, federal. Anything to add to that, Venice, about the surety bonds?
I think you've covered it.
All right. Now, like I said, in here, we're not going to get deep into it. I'm telling you, it's a thing that you need to go learn about. As it happens, the SBA has a surety bond program so that businesses that find it difficult to find a surety bond out commercially, we have a guaranteed program similar to the guaranteed loans. In the SBA guaranteed loans, we offer a guarantee to the bank as an incentive for them to lend to a small business. And that means if the business defaults on the loan, then we will pay the bank. Well, with the surety bond thing, we offer a guarantee to them. So we will be responsible for it if something goes wrong and the bond agent has to pay out on the surety bond. You can find out more about it by talking to me separately, send me an email, and we can arrange to talk by phone or on video or whatever's convenient, or just by email if that's more convenient for you.
It's very inexpensive. A lot of the time folks get scared. They think it's going to be expensive, very inexpensive.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been talking about the answers to this question for this whole thing, basically. Why is it important to have insurance? Because there's risks involved in business. There's a protection of assets, cash or property. It's better to make premiums, to pay premiums on an insurance policy that's going to cover you in the case of something so that you can pay out cash, the benefits pay out cash to whoever it is makes the claim. And that way your assets and property are not part of that. You don't have to sell property or assets to get the cash to make the payments if you're liable. It protects you from loss of income. You can maintain continued financing, and you get protection from injuries and damages that you received or that are inflicted. Right. That's what we've been saying throughout this whole thing. Now, there are legal and regulatory requirements. We said this at the beginning. For certain kinds of businesses, you're going to have insurance, right? In the same way that for consumers, right? For a driver, I think all states now mandate having liability insurance. You don't have to have collision coverage, full coverage, so it protects you, but you have to be protected against liability. So if you cause an accident, you cause injury to someone, you have insurance that will cover them. They will be covered. Well, that's a law mandating that I, as a driver, have to have it. There are laws mandating that you, as a business owner, have certain kinds of insurance.
Correct.
Now, regarding retention of employees, how does having insurance improve retention of employees, Venice?
I would say in the having medical insurance for your employees are actually definitely a game changer sometime for retaining and even hiring employees.
Yeah.
The supplemental benefits that some company offers, and I think it's one of the things too that I find to be a game changer and helps to retain employees for your business.
When you're starting out in business, it's hard to see how important this is to have good employees. It's hard to understand because you think you may not have the experience of having to go out and hire people, and you may not yet have the experience of hiring people who don't work out, and then you got to replace them, and that affects your business. If your business grows to a point where you need employees, obviously if you hire them, it's because you need them, because you need them to run the business, to make money so you can make a profit. That's the whole point of having the business, is to make a profit. If you lose an employee unexpectedly for some reason, you've got to replace that employee, which costs you time, which can cost you money. So if you can have longer tenure from your employees, people who will stay, one of the ways is to offer medical insurance. Now, that's a question that people have, are there benefits? Some people, not all people, not all jobs, right? I didn't ask about benefits when I worked at McDonald's when I was a teenager. But as you get older, this matters to people. You want to have benefits. So it's important to have insurance for retention of employees and attraction of employees, getting good people to be in your business, to be your employee, and to stay. Now, business continuity is another thing. If you have disasters, well, this pandemic 3 years ago, That was one.
Mhm.
A lot of businesses failed because they weren't covered. They didn't have coverage for unexpected things. It helps you maintain cash flow.
Loss of income.
Yeah, loss of income. In fact, that was what our economic injury disaster loan was. The SBA disaster loan it wasn't insurance, but it was for that. It was for loss of revenue from an economic injury from a disaster, which in this case was a nationwide, worldwide pandemic. But before that, we used to use it for all kinds of natural disasters. It's happening now in certain places. There are natural disasters. I see the declarations of them in different states, different counties, different areas of different states. Every week, there's another one. There's a flood somewhere. There's a fire somewhere, something like that. All right, carry on here. So business location affects a type of policy. Home-based, an add-on to homeowners or separate. There's a big warning. Your traditional homeowner's insurance may not cover damage caused by your home-based small business. Talk to us about that, Venice.
With you, the only, it's just a few things that are covered, that you can operate in your home that's covered under your regular homeowners. One being, and maybe the only one for most insurance company, is a home daycare. Anything outside of that, you should consider having a general liability that's considered a home-based business general liability. Most times it's less expensive than a regular general liability. But it's very important. I actually got very worried when we were going through the COVID, and a lot of people had transitioned their business into their homes. A lot of folks had left themselves wide open. So you do want to make sure that if you're operating your business at home, especially if it's a business that people are coming in and out of your home, you need to have insurance to protect yourself and your business. Because if someone comes into your home and trip and fall, or anything could happen, then you do want to make sure that you're covered. Very important to have home-based business. Can't say that enough.
Yeah. And the retail one, if you have one or more locations, there's inventory theft, credit card theft, a personal vehicle. If you're using a personal vehicle for deliveries, you're using your personal vehicle for work, your regular coverage is not going to cover you if the insurance company finds out about this, right? So you want to think about these things ahead of time.
If you look at your personal auto insurance, it's stated very clearly there that this policy does not cover you if you're using your vehicle for hired, for pay, for work. It's a business, and your personal auto is personal use.
And if you have a kiosk at festivals and conferences for full-time or for shorter periods, I guess that would be some sort of rider if you're going to participate in some sort of place where you take your office-based business or something and you go to a conference or something, you have a kiosk there, you're going to be selling there, you're going to be conducting business there. Does your insurance cover you for stuff there? And I guess there's short-term riders that you can use for that, Venice?
You need to state that so your insurance company can add the rider correctly. Correct. Or you might need to purchase a one-day policy. So you need to have that discussion with your agent to make sure that you're covered properly. A lot of time I find that people will purchase policies too, and they do not describe their type of business properly. Know your business and know what you're seeking coverage for, and disclose it clearly, because you don't want any surprises down the road. Yeah. It's very important that you're able to describe the type of business you're involved in.
Right. When selecting a policy, you got to weigh the costs to ensure the risk. So, can you cover this loss without insurance? That is, insurance in many ways is a replacement, is designed to be cash that you don't have. So if I just have an extra $1 million in cash sitting somewhere that can cover me for certain losses, then there's no need for me to buy insurance. If I'm willing to use that cash. Now,
Right.
if I want to use that cash for something else and I don't want to touch it at all for anything, then I get insurance. But is there something small that you can cover it yourself without insurance? You have to make that decision. You have to consider this. Now, you want to consider policy costs with the deductibles and the coverage limits. Sometimes you may pay more for something just because you don't want to deal with the hassle. Now, the story I told about having, needing car insurance 3 times in my life, I was always paying for insurance that was a little bit more expensive than I wanted to. But it's because what I wanted personally from this was I don't want hassles. I don't want any problems. If I know that if my car is stolen, I cannot conduct my life without a car. I can't go to school without a car. I can't attend my college classes without a car. I can't go to my job without a car. My whole life stops if I don't have a car. How much does that matter to me? Well, it turns out it matters a lot to me. So I will pay a little bit more than I'm really happy about paying. Because if I need this, I need it to work now. I need it to solve my problem now. I don't want to be scrambling how am I going to have enough money to get, what am I going to do? How am I going to get to work? How am I going to go to my class? How am I going to do all this stuff? So when you find yourself in that situation in your business, how am I going to handle this situation? I don't have enough insurance to cover this thing. Now, I'm not saying you go out and you get $10 million of insurance when you're only ever going to need 2, right? Or something like, I'm not saying you do that. What you're weighing here is, excuse me, how much you're going to pay now, how does it affect your cash flow now versus what you need it to do for you when you have that problem. It is hard to predict that, but you can analyze your situation. You can go, all right, here I am. I have this business. I depend on this business for my life. This business is how I pay for everything, the income I receive from it. If I have some sort of problem, is this insurance enough to solve my problem so that it doesn't destroy everything, so I don't lose everything? That's the way to think about it. What do you think about that? Am I extreme on that, Venice?
No, you're right on. You're right
Okay.
on. I always say cheap is not cheap sometimes.
No, cheap is not cheap when it comes to insurance and when you need it and for certain things.
Mhm.
Now,
And we say, can I make a point on the
Yeah, yeah.
considered policy cost with deductibles?
Mhm.
A lot of time as consumers, we are so focused on protecting the small dollars, right? And we're leaving the large dollars wide open. And what I mean by that is that we're focused on our deductibles. Oh, if something happens today, I don't want to have to pay more than $1,000 deductible and have the insurance company pays the rest.
Mhm.
When we really should be saying, maybe I should really take this $3,000 deductible, which will save me a few dollars a year, and then I can use this $200 savings to buy another $1 million liability coverage on the same policy. Am I making sense? So choose a higher deductible, which will cause the policy to be a little cheaper, which I can then use to purchase some higher liability on the same policy that is going to give me long-term protection if I become liable for something.
Right.
That is clear.
Yeah. Protect the big dollars, not the small dollars.
Protect the big dollars, not the small dollars.
Okay, that is alone is worth attending this as well. Okay, so let's carry on. Now you're going to be looking for a company and an agent. Well, you have one on the call. But you might be looking for someone else too. You want to compare quotes, coverage, deductibles, and other details. Stable and accessible. To check consumer and business reviews, network with other people, talk to other business owners, see who they have. Do not jump into anything, right? Be a smart consumer in the way you would be for personal stuff. Be a smart consumer as a business owner as well. Be a careful, thoughtful consumer regarding. Know what is not covered. What is not covered. Don't let that surprise you in the moment when you most need it.
Mhm.
Now, what are you going to do after the purchase? Keep phone numbers ready, available, put those in your phone book, keep the policies easy, accessible, maintain procedures in your business continuity plan, review policies periodically, right? If your business goes through a substantial increase in revenue or an expansion to another location or just more employees, you want to review those policies and see if that's still what you need. Meet with the agent from time to time. How often do you think people should meet with their agent, Venice?
Every renewal or when there's any major change in your business.
And what if financing is no longer needed? Then you make beneficiary changes, handle credit responsibly. Premiums can be affected by your credit worthiness. Now get credit or a refund for cancellations if you're entitled to those. And if you ever need to, be sure you file complaints with state insurance department or commissioner. If you have the bad luck of running into an unscrupulous or dishonest agent of any kind, then you, or insurance company, then you should do what's right there. Now,
And they're your best friend.
and what's that?
I say, and the insurance commissioner, they're your best friend.
Yeah.
They're your consumer. They're for you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, assuming risk is a part of doing business. So that's what you've done by undertaking this thing of owning a business, of starting a business and trying to grow it, right?
Mhm.
It's just part of life. It's part of having the business. And so you have a way of protecting yourself against risk. There is a distinction made between risk and uncertainty. And insurance is for risk. So here's a distinction made. And if I remember correctly, it's attributed to an economist, John Maynard Keynes. Uncertainty can't be quantified. Uncertainty is an unpredictable thing. We don't know. I mean, uncertainty is when the first smartphone came out, meaning not iPhones, which are only, by the way, 16 years old, 16 years old. Yeah. Smartphones as we know them, so iPhone is only 16 years, so it's barely old enough to drive. But the first one, BlackBerry, when they invented that, there was uncertainty. When they came out, they're like, we don't know how many people are going to use it. We have no idea. We think these people are going to use it. And then it turned out lots of people were using it. And then the iPhone came out, and now we know everybody has one. Almost everybody has one. But for example, go further back in technology, the uncertainty, the CEO or chairman, perhaps, of IBM, sometime in the 50s, made a statement that's famous in the world of technology now. Is he predicted that the market for big mainframe computers might be no more than 10, and that they would all be owned by the federal government. That's what he thought the market for big mainframe computers as they made them in IBM was. There was uncertainty. There was no way to quantify this. But risk is something that can be quantifiable, which means you can buy insurance for it. And risk, what I mean quantifiable, is actuaries. And this is the mathematicians who specialize in probability of risk, can say, we know that for every 100 drivers who are men under age 25. We know 25 of them are going to be in an accident in the next year. Out of those 100, we don't know which 25. I don't know if it's going to be David, or if it's going to be Moises, or if it's going to be, I don't see any other male names on this call, or if it's going to be Joe or Jim or Pedro. I don't know. I just know 25 out of the 100 are going to be in an accident.
Mhm.
And so that is what we use to price our insurance policy.
Mhm.
There is a risk. That's why I said time horizon. I know within a year, this many people with these characteristics, they're male, they have a license, young men are kind of risky that way with cars.
In a
And
certain
so
zip code.
certain zip codes, right? I know this is going to happen. Like they give discounts to kids, right? To young drivers. If you have a 4.0, because they go, well, 4.0 students just don't get in that many accidents.
Mhm.
What's the connection? I'm not sure, but we know that. We know the statistics tell us that. All right. So risk is quantifiable, and therefore you can get insurance for it. Uncertainty is not quantifiable, so you can't get insurance. We can't predict if your business is going to be profitable or not. But we can predict that your business might suffer a loss due to a hurricane if you have a business in southern Florida. And we can predict you're going to suffer some kind of loss in the next 10 years due to hurricanes.
Mhm.
That's quantifiable. So the things that are quantifiable risks, you want to go find insurance for them. All right.
Mhm.
Now, key points to remember. Check the federal, state, and county and local laws. Paying unemployment insurance and workers' compensation premiums on time will keep your business reputation intact. Professional licensing may require additional insurance or surety bonds if they're professional licenses for insurance. And professional license doesn't mean just lawyers and doctors. I know that massage therapists in many states are licensed. You have to have a license. So that kind of business, you're going to require it. I think you have to have certain licenses for hair salons, right? You may have insurance requirements for that, right?
David, one thing we didn't mention,
Yeah.
and I just want to put this errors and omission,
Okay.
errors and omission insurance,
Okay.
especially in the financial arena.
So tell us about that. What is the errors?
For instance, I have an errors and omission policy because, what that protects me from is if I didn't follow certain guidelines with it, let me give a live example. Someone calls me to add a car to their policy.
Mhm.
And for some reason, I didn't add that car to the policy. And it's 6 months later, and their son was just driving the car and killed someone. So there's no insurance, right? So my errors and omission will now kicks in to pay that policy.
That
Or
covers you for your error, your
my
professional error.
error. So it covers you for your professional error.
All right. Professional licensing may require additional insurance or surety bonds, and lenders and investors are going to require insurance to protect from risks involved with doing any kind of business, because lenders, for example, they're going to want to be repaid. So they're going to require this. This is reviewing everything we've been talking about here. This is reviewing everything we're talking about here. One thing I want to underline here. Keep accurate records for your claims. I'm going to say it again. Keep accurate records for your claims. All right. One of the biggest weaknesses of small businesses is poor record keeping. Poor record keeping.
Mhm.
When it comes to this kind of stuff, when you're dealing with an insurance company, you can be denied a claim if you don't have accurate records of anything pertinent to this, right? So keep accurate records for anything that may affect a future claim, right? It's just be organized.
Keep your receipts of purchases.
Yeah. If beneficiaries change, update the beneficiaries, obtain releases and maintain adequate coverage. What are they referring to there, Venice, with obtain releases?
Okay, beneficiaries. This would come in maybe on your life insurance.
Mhm.
Okay, you might have, for instance, if we talk about earlier having a loan and we list that person as additional insured. If that loan is paid off, then you need to release that person from that policy. Just like you would release your mortgage company from your homeowner's insurance.
All right. Okay, that brings us to the end here. And let's see here. We have a question from Ken.
No, I was just going to share that you have a couple of questions in the chat that I wanted to make sure you guys
Okay.
address.
Okay, let's see here. Is errors and omissions not covered under general liability?
No, it's not. Errors and omission is a separate policy that will cover you from professional errors.
Okay. And what's the other one that you see, Ken? I can't, that's the most recent one I see.
One person wanted to know, how does a startup budget for employee insurance in advance prior to hiring? And then wanted to know, is there a database for insurance providers validated through the SBA?
Well, no, there's no database of insurance providers validated by us. We don't recommend specific insurance providers or anything like that. Now, a startup budget, how does a startup budget? Okay, but for employee insurance, what kind of employee insurance? What do they mean? In advance prior to hiring. I'm not sure what the question means. I mean, if you're a startup, it depends on what you mean.
I would say if you're a startup, then you need to make sure in your business plan that your account, you're gathering information. It might mean calling an insurance agent. It might mean calling the unemployment office. It might definitely, you could find that information from a payroll company that can help you to do those things. But definitely, as you're starting your business up and as you're working on your business plan, all those things should be considered. And you can gather that information from all those places I just mentioned.
Yeah, I guess it's depending on where you are as a startup, because startup can mean many different things. It depends on how you're using the word. Now, if you're a startup, meaning, okay, you've been in business for a year, you submitted a year's worth of business taxes, you got a business tax return under your belt, and you're planning for some growth and you're making some projections. Well, yeah, you go like Ken said, and like Venice said, you go and you talk and you see, well, I anticipate that I'm gonna have 3 employees that I hire this year, and I put that in my projections, my income projections and my cash flow projections for what I'm gonna need. Now, if you haven't sold anything yet, right? But you're making projections for how many employees you're going to need after the first year of operations. You haven't sold anything yet. You haven't started yet, but you're making projections. It's the same thing. You go and you get these estimates, but be aware that when the projections you make, when you have not yet even begun operating, those are going to change radically, probably within the first 3 or 4 months once you start operating. So you're going to be revisiting those a lot. All right. It says there's one new message here. Let's see here. If you know you will need to cover employees' health and other liabilities, how do you budget it for a business plan prior to earning? It's what they just said. It's you get estimates based on how many employees you think you're going to need. And you shop around for what that's going to cost you, and you put that in your projections. But remember, before you start earning anything, these projections, that is all hypotheses and educated guesses. You will have to revisit this as soon as you start making sales. You're going to revisit this because your projections may be spot on. you may have underestimated how much you earn, or you may have overestimated how much you're going to be earning in sales, right? How much you're going to be making in sales. So you want to keep all that in mind. Karen Cooper Keith has her hand up. Why don't you unmute yourself and just, ask us directly.
I had an earlier question about in the financial services arena. I think I don't know Bruce, but Bruce and I are kind of tag teaming on the same type of question. So I do have E&O insurance. Are you recommending the general liability or business insurance in addition to that, or is the errors and omissions sufficient?
General liability or business owners,
In addition to?
in addition to the errors and omission. The errors and omission is just going to cover you for errors, just professional mistake that you might make in your operation. The general liability is going to cover you for any liability exposure that might take place that you might be liable for.
And my
That
second,
explain that? And remember that the business owner's policy and the general liability, they're almost the same in that, but the business owner's policy will cover personal property. So if you're a business owner that has personal properties within your business, like your furniture and other stuff that you need to cover at a larger scale, or then you will, the business owner's property will offer a wider coverage.
okay, thank you. One other quick question is, are these rates competitive, or is it best that I go with my insurer that I already have for my home and auto?
I find that the commercial policies are pretty competitive.
Okay, thank you.
But you should, in all honesty, you should have a conversation with your current agency owner as well. I would love for you to call me, but you should have a conversation with the person you have a relationship with at the moment.
All right, this was very helpful. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
So a question, Kim has a question. Unmute yourself and ask us your question.
Hello, hope you can hear me okay.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. I have a kind of confusing question to me. I am a business owner and do have the appropriate insurance and liability for my business. However, last year, we meaning my family, opened an additional business and purchased the building that our business is currently in. So now we own that building. So we're a little confused because we have an association. So we have insurance for our business, in which our business it's a computer repair shop. So we do have, obviously people bringing, it's Apple products. So they bring pretty expensive products into us that we would have to house for a few days. So we do have liability insurance on that. I'm confused because we had to purchase another insurance policy as the owners of the building. Almost, I feel like we're duplicating the coverage because we have liability on that too, but from the business name or the owner, kind of like from the owner's aspect. So I'm trying to figure out, is there a way that I can have one policy that covers all of it?
Do you have an LLC that owns the building and then you
Yes.
have a business company that you operate?
Yes, correct.
Well, yes, you do need both policies.
Got
So
it.
it's if you have that policy that's covering the building and anything else that that LLC owns, that's one policy. And then your business, John Brown LLC, for instance, owns the business and needs separate coverage as well.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. That was all. I was just confused on that. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're
You're
very
welcome.
welcome.
All right, so we've reached the end here. I hope this was useful for anyone. Everyone who was on here, you learned a little bit, or at least you learned what you didn't know. And now you have a little bit of homework and research to go do. Go talk to your agent for any kind of insurance that you already have, and see if there's anything else you should get, or see if there's anything else you need to learn about. Any final words for us, Venice?
I will say, like I said before, you don't need insurance until you need it. And when you need it, it's too late.
Yep.
And I always say that you've packed your assets and you're moving down the beltway with it in your car or wherever, and you can lose it in the split second.
Yep.
You don't need it until you need it.
Yeah. Any parting words for us, Ken?
Yes, I'll just, Nelson, do you have anything you want to add? If not,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Just want to
Right,
say
Nelson.
thanks to everybody. Yeah, I just want, I'm trying to find where the Zoom camera is so I can come back on. Yeah, so just wanted to say thanks for everyone. This is a really interesting topic. I know sometimes insurance is not the most attractive part of a business,
Not.
you think of, but it's super important. It's super important. It's just really managing risk. Um, and that's, as entrepreneurs, that's what we do. We take a risk. So this is something you need to consider, and insurance is a tool that's been around for ages, as David pointed out to us. So it works. So, but thanks everybody. Thanks David. Thanks Venice. Thanks Ken.
And if anybody, you'll get my contact information. If you have any SBA specific questions, want to talk about anything, anybody can email me and we can talk separately about it.
And one last item, there's a couple of questions in the chat about will the folks receive slides? I'm not sure if we got them out to you or not, but there was a participation guide that was supposed to go out to you. If that did not go out, we'll be sending that out. If it didn't go out earlier today, we'll send you the participants guide to the whole presentation.
Cool.
And again, thank you, David, and for an excellent presentation, Venice. Thank you. Good info. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Everyone have a great evening.
All right. Good Wednesday to everyone.
With that, thank you, everybody, and you got 2 minutes back in your day. Thanks.
Always good.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.